Welcome to the Rivals in Law podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Ellender. Today we are flying solo, so my co-host Sam cannot make it today. So I'm coming in to start us off, carry us through, and take us home. And today we are doing episode 11, and this is a feature of the NFL schedule release. So the big news since last time we recorded, last week we really kind of broke down that NFL draft, what happened, what were some key players, what were some key takeaways, and how that would kind of influence the season. Within that week, we got news of the new schedules, which was fun and exciting. It's been fun in this new era of the internet and social media to see some teams really go out and make some funny compilation videos to kind of announce who they're playing, who's going to play who. I think some favorites. I didn't get to watch them all, but I think one of the clear-cut winners was the Tennessee Titans. So shout out to the Tennessee Titans if you're out there. They had a really creative video team. There were so many comments like, give that social media team a raise. They went out and went to Broadway Street, which is like the main strip in Nashville if you've never been, and they would ask random strangers. They basically went down and showed logos of each team, kind of announcing the schedule. And the first one was our New Orleans Saints, who dat? And the first person, it was like this girl on Broadway Street, and they're like, who's this? And like, the St. Louis, and then what was it? It was the... I forgot what it was, St. Louis something for the Saints, and then they do this little sound effect with the NFL logo announcing the schedule. They did week by week, and it was just hilarious. Some of these teams, it was like the Pirates from the secret Caribbean island was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There was it was just very comical. I think the Falcons were the I can't remember. We'll have to pull it up, but it was funny. The Saints did a good one too. It was like a script read, kind of based off like an MTV short on like a true story, and they had a guy like he was the script writer, and they kind of did a spoof off the 2019 Missing the Call. Like he chalked it up and it went perfect. He got a raise. The Packers did. I'm vouching for Sam here. They did like one of those ads like buy now $19.99, and it was like kind of like a spoof, really off the cuff kind of feature on like the NFL schedule for the Packers. So that was some funny things. I suggest check it out if you haven't already as you're listening to this. Maybe watch it later to blow off some steam. But the Saints, big news here. So if you're a Saints fan, you're in luck. I'm repping the jersey. If you're listening right now and you can't see, hop on over to YouTube, repping the Saints jersey. This is mainly going to be a Who Dat podcast, so you're in luck today if you're a Saints fan. We're also going to touch on some other teams as I kind of break down the schedule, but that's what I'm going to do today. Today I'm really not going to be a super long episode or in-depth, but I'm going to break down the schedule and then kind of like a little mini game-by-game what I think is going to happen, projected record for the Saints. I know last week we gave some projections, but this will be some actual hard factual. I can kind of really see, okay, could they legitimately go this record? And I have an update from the last week, so I'm excited to break it down. So, this is my first solo episode, so bear with me. Sam did a great job. He's done it about twice now, and next week I'm actually going to be out of town, so Sam's going to take us home then as well before we get back together. So, without further ado, I'm going to break down the Saints' schedule. I'm not going to go into the Packers. I'm going to leave that to Sam so he can do that justice. But let's hop into the Saints. So, I'm just going to go down team by team, and then I'm going to give a little in-game analysis followed by a conclusion of who I think is going to win and projected record. So the Saints, they start off the season. I'm not going to cover preseason. We're just going to go right into the season. They start off playing the Titans at home, bringing Derrick Henry and Tannehill to the Superdome. And then week 2, we have Saints at Panthers, little Monday night football action, which will be fun. Week 3, Saints versus the Packers at Lambeau Field, which is always going to be fun. That'll be a big week. You better tune into this podcast to get a full breakdown of that game analysis. It's going to be fun. Saints at Packers. Week 4, Bucks versus Saints at home. We've got week 5, Saints at the Patriots. Week 6, Saints at the Texans. Week 7, we have the Jaguars coming to the Superdome for a little Thursday night football. Week 8, Saints play the Colts at the Colts. Week 9, the Bears come to play the Saints at the Superdome. Week 10, we got the Saints at the Vikings. Then we got a little bye week sandwiched in there after we go up to Minnesota. Week 12, we're going over to Atlanta, Saints versus Falcons. Week 13, we're going to play the Lions at home. Shout out to Trevor. We'll cover that in a second. Week 14, Panthers are coming back to the Superdomes, Panthers versus Saints. Then we got Week 15, Giants coming to the Saints, coming to the Superdome. Week 16, Saints at the Rams. They're going to L.A. Week 17, we got Saints at the Bucs, so we're going to Tampa Bay. And then to close out the season, we got the Falcons coming back to the Superdome, Falcons versus Saints. So here we go. We got the schedule. We see it all. And before we even go in, I'm actually pretty pleased as I just read off the teams. There aren't as many heavy hitter matchups that I thought, kind of anticipating going in when I gave my first projection. So I'm feeling pretty good, pretty confident about this. This schedule. The AFC opponents they gave us were a lot of AFC South teams, which in years past haven't been the strongest. You got the Texans, the Colts, some of those teams. And so without further ado, let's break it down. I'm going to dive into each, and then I'll conclude at the end. So game 1, week 1, we got the Saints versus the Titans, and we have the Titans coming to the Superdome. I think that'll be a fun, exciting matchup to kick off the season. You got Derrick Henry and company with the Titans facing the Saints. I think it'll be a really cool statement game for Derek Carr to start his season in the Superdome, which will be really exciting to have him, his first game in black and gold, under the lights in the Superdome with the home crowd. I think there's going to be a lot of momentum riding there. Give me the win. I think, again, you got the big running back with the Titans, but Derrick Henry is getting older. You have Tannehill, who, there's just been a lot of quarterback, they're trying to figure out their quarterback situation. I just think the Saints have more experience there. And Derek Carr is going to be wanting to prove himself, in my opinion, that first game. So give me the Saints, week 1. We're starting off 1-0, feeling good. Which brings us to week 2, Monday Night Football in Carolina. So this is a matchup where Bryce Young is getting settled in. And who knows, Andy Dalton went to the Panthers. And so I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, to see Andy Dalton maybe take some of those first couple games. But if I'm pretty sure on Bryce Young's talent, I think he will be facing the Saints at that point. And I like the Saints in this primetime matchup. Again, you got a younger quarterback trying to figure it out. Who knows? It could be Andy Dalton. Even if it is Andy Dalton, I think we have the experience there. I think the Panthers, there's a lot of new changes, new coach, a lot of new pieces. I think they've got some talent for sure, and they're always going to fight. That's always going to be a battle with the Panthers and the Saints. But I think they'll need a little more time in the season, I think, to get their footing. Give me the Saints starting off 2-0. I love to see it. I think it'll be exciting for us to get on a hot start, which brings us to week 3. Okay, so this is a game where I was really having a tough spot with the Saints going to the Packers. So Sam is not in the room, and I'm sure if he was here, he'd give a lot of feedback, and I'm sure you'll hear some of that next week. But we got the Saints versus the Packers. You got Jordan Love suiting up. I think they got some, Sam broke it down, some good pieces, solid pieces during the draft. But again, I think the Saints will have some momentum going into Lambeau Field. It's going to be cold. It's going to be in a new environment, but I think the Saints squeeze this one out, and I'm just going to call it out. Saints versus Packers. I like my Saints going up there. Again, I think the Packers, they've got good pieces. They've got good players, but they're really, I think, another one of those teams who's going to be trying to, I think it won't start really clicking until mid-season with Jordan Love. Who knows? He might put it together early and soon, and we saw he had some good games last year. But I think this early in the season, I like the Saints to edge it out. It's going to be a close one, very close. I like my Saints to take that out. I'm going hot. Saints 3-0 to start the season. Again, a lot of these picks are based off experience, momentum, timing, which brings us to week 4. So give me my Hoodats over the Cheeseheads. Week 4, we got the Buccaneers, and so this isn't a team that we're used to knowing in recent years with Tom Brady at the helm. This is a year where they're going to have to figure it out. First year without him. Is it Baker Mayfield? Is it Kyle Trask? Really a lot of questions on this Buccaneers team, and the Bucs are coming to the Superdome for this game, and so I think the Saints actually take care of this game pretty easily. Again, I think it might be a different story later, but again, a lot of these teams in the NFC South are really trying to put it together, and I know the Saints have some new pieces as well with Derek Carr and others, but I think we have enough experience to really kind of edge out these Buccaneers and give me the Saints 4-0. I really think those first 4 games are chalked up in a favorable way. You know, who knows, the Titans might bring it game 1, but I'm just taking that factor of Derek Carr wanting to prove it early as he comes into the New Orleans Saints. So Saints started off 4-0, bring us to Week 5 versus the Patriots. And so this Patriots team, this is at the Patriots. You got New England. Again, a quarterback situation that is kind of up in the air. You have Mac Jones there, but I'm not sure how confident Belichick is with him. I know they've been trying to bring in other guys, seeing what's going on. I think Mac Jones will be the starter at that point still. But, I think this is a game where it's kind of one of those toss-ups. The Patriots always have a great defense. Going up to New England, cold weather. I think the Saints might be feeling too good about themselves at this point. I'm going to chalk this one down as a loss in the column. So we got Saints 4-1 out of the first 5 games, which I'll take every day. And, you know, that's the Patriots. It could be another game that they lose there. It could be the Packers. Who knows? But I'm going to say that in that first 5 games, that Patriots game is going to be the loss. And then we got the Saints at the Texans. And so this is a Texans team who is going to look completely different from the Texans team that we knew before. New quarterback and C.J. Stroud. You got DeMeco Ryan kind of taking over. I think it's going to be an exciting team. And again, another one of these teams that has a lot of talent. It's just I don't know how much they'll have put together at this point in the season. Still pretty early on. You got Will Anderson on the edge. You've got some playmakers, but I just don't know if they have it all together at this point. Give me the Saints again, 5-1. I think, again, our experience, it's not too far from the Superdome. It'll be a little bit of a travel, just right over to Houston. Derek Carr, I like him leading us versus Texans. And, again, a lot of these games, it's going to be interesting to see. If we've got Kamara, no suspension, I'm even more confident with these picks. But even without him, you know, with Jamal, we drafted Kendre Miller. I think we've got a good enough backfield to be able to take on some of these teams even without Kamara. So give me the Saints 5-1 after Week 6, which brings us to a Thursday night primetime matchup, Saints versus the Jaguars. So we got Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars coming into the Superdome. So this is Week 7. This is a spot where another game that I think is going to be pretty close. But if you haven't been paying attention, Trevor Lawrence and these Jaguars are making some noise. Last year they did a great job. They've been in the mix in the playoffs, or at least fighting for that spot year in and year out since Trevor Lawrence has been there. I think they've got a good squad, and I think this is a sneaky team that the Saints might overlook. You know, it might be a game where you're feeling hot, you're coming off the Texans. I'm going to give this one to the Jaguars. And again, a lot of these teams that I listed week 1 through 7 are really trying to figure out their quarterback position until this game versus the Jaguars. And I think quarterback is such an important position. And this is not only a talented quarterback like a Bryce Young, like a C.J. Stroud, but someone with experience. So I want to mark this one down as a loss in the column. You gotta pick and choose which ones you want to give. I'm going to give that one to the Jaguars. Saints are sitting at 5-2, which again is a good spot, which I would take. Again, another team, I think the Saints really got lucky in a lot of these draws of teams that are still trying to figure out that quarterback position. And it just shows how needy the NFL is right now with quarterbacks. And I think it's just a prime time for some of these college prospects coming out to really get significant playing time coming in as a quarterback, because so many teams are looking for that spot. So another one of these teams is the Colts, Week 8. Saints are traveling to Indianapolis. And I think this is a team that, again, having a lot of questions. Anthony Richardson, they drafted. Could this be their guy? Hey, who knows? Maybe at this point he's rolling and he's really fitting into this scheme, this system. As coming from my LSU roots, you know, the Tigers played Florida 4 years. The Tigers actually never beat, or the Gators never beat the Tigers with Anthony Richardson. So I just honestly haven't seen enough of him to really see if he's going to thrive in the NFL. So I'm going to give this again to the Saints, another quarterback situation that is pretty up in the air. Saints sitting at 6-2 at Week 8, which I like. And then that brings us to Week 9. So Week 9, we have the Chicago Bears. So this is a team where they were sitting at the one spot for the draft. They traded back. They got some new pieces in DJ Moore from the Panthers. They added some other spots, some trades, got some picks in the draft. Again, I think this is a game, that I think in years past with the Bears, you're like, oh yeah, that's an automatic win. I don't know why I had this gut feeling. Justin Fields, I think we saw flashes of that last year. And again, nothing huge with his arm, but rushing, just elite rushing, which, comparable to Lamar Jackson, which might bite the Saints. And I think it's a game that we might overlook. And I think Justin Fields, if it was ever to happen, this is the year, I think it's third year for him, to potentially start breaking out, to become one of those stars. And we'll see what happens. It could be a bust. But I think this is a game where the Saints take another L. It's a game where they have a replenished defense, and I think it's one that we're going to overlook. It's at home after sitting 6-2. So give me that 6-3 for the Saints. And so then it comes up to Week 10, which is the last game before our bye. And so this is a game, the Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings, and this is at Minnesota. So again, this is a team that I think had a great run last year, the Vikings. Honestly, their record, I think, showed was a lot better than they actually were. But again, they are leaning into that offense. The first draft pick, I thought they were going to get a defensive spot to really kind of shore up a weakness they had in that defense. They had the offense last year, but they kept leaning in. They got Jordan Addison, another big-time receiver, to pair with Justin Jefferson. I guess they're just trying to go to the scheme of just blow out some teams. And so that's their MO, I guess, which is going to be this year. And so I think it's going to be enough to beat the Saints. It's a game where I think we have the potential to win that one. But at the Vikings, it's away, all the way up in Minnesota. They've got good firepower. Justin Jefferson. Got a lot of LSU players, actually. Danielle Hunter. There were some other draft picks who went there. So give me the Vikings, that game. That brings us to 6-4. Saints started off really hot in my prediction, and now they're kind of curbing back a little bit, 6-4 going into the bye. I still like it. I think they'd still kind of be leading the pack in the NFC South, which is actually, pretty weak division. A lot of youngsters in there, but I think the Saints have some experience. So it brings us to the bye week, which I want to take a little break from the schedule, take a little sip of water right here. But again, I think as we're just looking overall at this schedule, I'm pretty pleased, pretty happy with the draws that we got, especially from the AFC. There's some games in there, like most of these AFC games, the Texans, the Colts. I'm looking down, even the Titans. Some teams that are really trying to figure out that quarterback position, which I feel pretty good about our situation. So let's hop back in. We got the Saints, Week 12 at the Falcons. So again, another team in the NFC that's trying to figure out their quarterback situation. They trade away Mariota. I think they've got Heineke and Desmond Ridder there, and so that's another team that's trying to figure it out. We know they got the big firepower on the offense with Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to be a great piece for them, honestly. And I'm actually, I hate that it went to the Falcons. I feel like the arch nemesis of the Saints, that we got to face him week in, week out. But I think the Saints have enough on their side, even at Atlanta, to take this win over a team that's really trying to figure out that quarterback position. You got the Falcons' young team, Bijan Robinson. I think we're going to take that. Give me the Saints at 7-4 going into Week 13. So Week 13, we've got the Lions, Detroit Lions. And so this is a team, again, shout out to Trevor. This is a guy, he's a faithful listener to the podcast. He came out to the NFL draft party versus Lions. So this is a really interesting game for me. This is one when I was pretty torn. But, I'm going to I'm following the storyline here. I'm following Jamal Williams' revenge game. Apparently there was some bad blood that went out in that free agency kind of send-off with I don't know the full story on that. Maybe we'll have to bring Trevor on definitely for that week. We're really going to get some analysis in for that game. But Jamal Williams right there, I think he's going to have a huge game. I think they're going to give him the ball. He's going to be hungry. and they're going to edge out these lines who I think have some great firepower. They've got Jahmyr Gibbs. They've got David Montgomery now. They got some pieces on offense and the receivers, Amon St. Brown, Jared Goff. Who knows with Hendon Hooker? Maybe he gets a shot at some point this year, depending if there's any injury to Jared Goff. But I think it's going to be a close game, a lot closer than we think it's going to be. A lot of offense. But I think I'm giving it to the Saints. I'm riding Jamal Williams, the new guy on the block, to take us home for that game. Week 14, Panthers versus Saints. Again, so this is a game where, again, I like the Saints. Just if you look at the teams, just paper to paper, I think the Saints have enough talent right there. But I think this is a game where Bryce Young has been able to catch his feet. He's been in the system, and I think this is a game that surprises the Saints, surprises a lot of Saints fans. And I think Bryce Young has a big game here. He comes into the Superdome and gets the win. So I'm going to give that one to the Panthers. I know it's hard to say, Saints fans. You're probably cringing when I said that, but I'm going to have to give this one to the Panthers, 8-5. So we're sitting at 8-5 going into Week 15. We bring in the Giants, the New York Giants. So here we go. If you remember back with me, I think this was 2021, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The Saints had a heartbreaking loss in overtime versus Daniel Jones. We blew a lead. They came back. They won the game. It was one of those games where you just kind of shook your head like, oh, my gosh, how did we blow that? I think this is a revenge game for the Saints. The guys still on the team will remember that. We're coming in hot. I think they've got Daniel Jones as a good quarterback, but just kind of inconsistent. And I just don't know if they have the full pieces to put this together. We'll see how Saquon is at that point, if he's fully healthy. You never know with that. So give me the Saints in that. Get us at 9-5 after Week 15, which goes into the Rams. So this is a Rams team that Week 16 – I think they kind of pulled all their strings. I'm just kind of speaking out on a limb here. Pulled all their strings with that Stafford, Aaron Donald. They signed all these big-time players, had that Super Bowl run, magical season. I just don't know if they have the depth from that year to be able to replenish. I think they need to be in rebuild. They think they're still in the star-studded phase. They're trying to add these old-time veterans. I think the Saints have it. We took them pretty hard last year. No one thought that we beat them as bad as we did last year. I think they're going to do it again. The Saints are going to come in. Stafford just doesn't have enough, I think, at this age to do what it has to take. Who knows if he'll still be in the starting position at that point. I like the Saints at 10-5 to win this game at the Rams. So Week 17, I think at this point, I am looking at, if we go 10-5, like playoff implications, we might be sitting players at this edge. Again, we have Saints at the Bucs. This is a game, again, where I think the Saints on paper are way better than these Buccaneers this year. You got Baker Mayfield or Trask. They're trying to find all these pieces. But again, I think situationally at the end of the season, if we're at 10-5, which I hope we are, we'll probably sit a couple guys. Maybe we go into this. Maybe we aren't sitting guys, but I think it's a game we might overlook. We're looking further ahead. I'm going to give us an L at the Buccaneers, at Tampa Bay, Week 17, as we close into the playoffs. So I think I'm going to give that to the Bucs, which puts us at 10-6, okay, going into the last game versus the Falcons. This is the Falcons coming to this Superdome. I think even if we're sitting guys, I like the Saints at home. It's always a game where there's just more reputation on the line. There's more ownership. Saints versus Falcons. The Saints guys are going to want that, especially at home to cap off the season. Give it to me, Saints 11-6. Let's go. And so if you remember last week or maybe 2 weeks ago with my projection, I put the Saints at 9-8, and that was pretty conservative. Again, that was mostly based off of my opinion with Kamara. If he was suspended, that was projecting him being suspended. But hey, with this schedule, looking at this again as I conclude this 11-6 with the Saints, even if Kamara's out, 1 to 6 games, I think the Saints have what it takes to get over that hump versus some of these teams, and I think it comes down to quarterback. I think with Derek Carr, you've got a guy with experience, with arm power, with talent. I think he's looking for something to prove. He felt like he wasn't believed in at Las Vegas. I think this is a new space, new environment where he really shows out. And some of these games that we lost last year because of quarterback play, again, I think Andy Dalton's a solid guy, but I just don't know if he's that bona fide starter. A lot of games were thrown away literally with interceptions. And so I think this is a quarterback that will put us in position to win those games that we cannot win last year. So 11-6, I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty solid about the Saints winning the NFC South. And hey, you might call me back on this with some cold takes, but I feel pretty good about the Saints being in a pretty solid spot when you look at that NFC South. You got the Atlanta Falcons trying to figure it out with Heineke and Desmond Ridder. You got the Panthers. You got Andy Dalton and Bryce Young. Again, I think there's talent there, but it might take a while for Bryce to get under his feet. And then you've got Tampa Bay, which is really has a lot of questions with Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. So I think the Saints will come in. My prediction is they win the NFC South. I don't think they're going to be the best team in the NFC by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they're in a good spot to maybe win a playoff game, maybe make a run. You never know. It's really going to come down to how Derek Carr meshes with these receivers, if Michael Thomas stays healthy, if Kamara is on the field. If all those things come into play, I think we have a really good schedule to take advantage of. So that, as we wrap it up, is my breakdown of the Saints NFL schedule. Again, I think this is exciting to we actually have some actual teams and games that we can break down and look at. Go ahead and look at it yourself online. But I feel pretty good. Let me know what you think. Feel free if you're watching on YouTube. Like I said, check out the Saints jersey. Leave some comments. Leave some suggestions. Maybe you thought I overjumped a game. You had a disagreeing opinion. Feel free to leave it. And also hit us a subscribe on the YouTube. If you're on Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. Every review, if you're listening, helps us push this episode out. It helps us push this podcast out. And again, bear with us as we're trying to get on other platforms as well. I want to get Apple Podcasts up soon, and there you can leave some physical reviews. But yeah, who dat? I'm feeling good about this season. Again, we're pretty far out. We're in May, but it'll be fun to see what happens if there's any off-season fantasy implications, if there's any free agent signings. Like I said, we're going to have some exciting things coming up when we really start to build out maybe some fantasy shows, even with the NCAA as they're in the off-season during the summer. So thank you again for listening this week. Like I said, I'll be out next week, but we have Sam coming in to take us home. So thank you. Again, tune into the Rivals in Law podcast, share it with a friend, and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you, either a DM on Instagram at Rivals in Law or on the YouTube. Send us a comment. So thank you again, and we'll hear from you next week.